Now on today's video, question and answer from questions asked on our channel comments, we have some real interesting paint questions, some questions about primer, some questions about paint adhesion. There's an awful lot of technical stuff on this video. Most of it involves painting. There's a few technical answers to questions people have asked about carburation, but basically most of it is about painting. And I know the majority of people that are new to painting, knowing the answer to a lot of these questions can save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of grief, and maybe inspire you that you get a nice gloss, high gloss paint job. You'll want to go on to do other paint jobs in your lifetime. So we love to share the information. Now this is volume 6 in our question and answer videos. What we do is we take the comments that come in on our YouTube channel, and a lot of people are sharing good quality information. We try to pass it on to all the people that subscribe, all the people that watch the video, and we try to add anything we can to it. And of course, if people ask a question, the whole idea is I try to give the best answer I possibly can. Keep in mind, I'm not a real good cook. I don't do marriage counseling, so we are limited, but it's always a fun discussion. I hope you're going to enjoy this question and answer Ask Wendy. Now for anybody who has not seen one of the previous 5 videos, question and answers, we take these questions directly from the comments. I try to put a brief answer in the comments section so that if somebody is looking for information right away, they can get it as soon as possible. And I usually do that 2 or 3 times a day. And then I try to answer the question in detail, which I would not be able to do on the YouTube channel. So today we got a lot of questions, and there's a few here that I think are really good that I wanted to share as quickly as possible, because I think these are the kind of question and answers, and the reason for having this channel to begin with is to share good information. Now I've gotten several good emails from a place called Cycle Sport Services, and he sent me an answer, and we were having this issue with the primer with the tips of the spray cans clogging up, and he said there's a product that he likes, UPOL 2.0, $89 a gallon. It comes in white, gray, or black primer, and of course we were using Duplicolor for so many years. I don't want to badmouth Duplicolor. I don't like to get into that. But we did get a case. I think there were 12 and 10 of them were bad. I was real upset about that. And I threw a lot of paint away because of that. But anyway, Cycle Sport Services sharing that information. Now, you not only can share it with your friends, whoever subscribes to my channel, and I hope if you subscribe and you know somebody's having trouble with primer or spray cans clogging up, pass that on for them. Now, another thing, Cycle Sport Services, and I don't keep these in any special order because I try to make the video as interesting as possible too. Colorite, he found, and he must do a lot of painting if he's doing gallons of primer. Colorite paint was pricey. Now we know Turbo Steve just did the paint for his turbo bike, and that was pricey, and my MT-09 paint was even pricier. So he found a company called Tamco. Better price, a good mix, and of course I recommend anybody, and Luciano and I have both gotten excellent paint mixes from Dennis at Gavin's. And Dennis seems to get it pretty right. The MT-09, the Yama Yellow on the Kenny Roberts, the 2 Kenny Roberts ladders bikes, the 2 Yamahas. So this is the kind of basic information. Now, when it comes to something like primer, this is really a good way to look at this. And I thought there's a theme to a lot of these emails today. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. There's a lot of ways to prime a motorcycle. A lot of ways to sand it. Like you can sandblast it, you can bead blast it, you can paint stripper it, you can sand it, wet sand it, do this, do that. There's a lot of ways to do things. And so what a really smart person I think would do is look at my way, look at everybody who posts up stuff on YouTube. What I'm saying is that if you have a typical question and you ask me, I'm going to give my answer, but that doesn't mean it's the answer. There's people a lot smarter than me, people know a lot more than I do, and it's good to see all their answers and then see what works for you. And a lot of this stuff comes from, we had the A-Team many years ago, 8-10 years ago, and we worked on each other's bike at each other's shops, and we got together on a regular basis. It was great sharing the information. Okay, we got a couple of information, things to share. Scott, who's been a real good friend and subscriber and fellow restorer of motorcycles, he looked up, he has access to the factory information. He said the 850 and 1100 GS carbs do not interchange. Scott, thank you for that information. Now Scott, for many years now, Scott and I have gone back and forth with paint questions. He just had an issue. And I want to explain this issue because this is really something, if you're new to painting and you're not familiar with modern paints, this can really bite you if you don't understand it. Okay, so Scott is painting a motorcycle, and one of many that he's painted, and he gets all the clear on, and he lets it dry for 10 days to harden up, which I always suggest to do. It just makes it easier, even though it's not really necessary. So he goes to buff it up. He puts the 2000 grit paper. It gets all satiny the way it should and flat. You go to buff it, and it really never buffs up. It gets a little shiny, but it doesn't come up like a mirror. Well, ask me how I noticed. Many times I have fallen into this trap of putting too much clear on at one time. Now, in other words, if the thickness of a finish is this thick, and a third of it, or maybe more, is clear, well, a lot of people, they make the clear that thick. Now, the problem with having too much clear on a bike, you want enough that you can buff it several times in the life of the bike, but you don't want to have 1/4 of an inch of paint. I can explain why. Because if you take your paint and you put it on, especially if you put wet coats on and you're just blowing it on out of especially if you use a big spray gun, you put on wet coats that tend to drip and drool, it never really hardens up. Now there's a way you can tell if paint is hard. You have a durometer. This is a tire durometer. It has shore readings, but a paint durometer or a plastic durometer would have a different spring inside and a different pin, but it would tell you the hardness of the paint. I don't really need this because I learned years ago what happens if you put the paint on too thick. I tend to put it on in a lot of thin coats, like pretend it was an airbrush, over and over, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, but not one big coat. And so what happens is that paint never really hardens up. I don't know why. There's a chemical reason. Somebody that's a rocket scientist or works for DuPont or something would know. I don't need to know. I just need to know it doesn't harden. The way I proved it to myself, I wanted to show to people at Gavin's one day, what's wrong with your paint? It doesn't harden up. So I took, when I was done spraying, I took a little bit, put it in a bottle cap, maybe 1/16 of an inch thick. Yeah, in the morning, wow, it's hard. But it never really got hard that you could buff it out. That bottle cap, I sanded it. It was a little jello-y, a little soft. A year later, I tried to buff it out. No go, baby. So, Scott, I know, Scott now is a very intelligent guy because every time I think he's intelligent, every time he's had a problem, he shares it with me and he says, please share it with the audience. So, my God, you couldn't be any better than that. Now, I know he had problem with paint lifting. We did that on a previous video. And Scott, I do appreciate that you're willing to share this with all the people who were basically all in the same boat. We're all trying to learn from each other and share information. It's the whole purpose of having this channel. Now here's a picture of my old race bike that I restored for Ray many years ago. And the reason is when we were doing this bike, and I was doing this in the cellar of my house, so many people contributed good usable information, including Luciano and everybody. Everybody was very on board with getting this bike to the way it is right now. Now here's a couple of really, really easy to answer questions because I have had every one of these problems. William, he has exactly the bike, the 650 that I have, the black one. And he says he loves the bike, but he has a problem with the fairing buzzing. That's a resonant vibration. Not many videos ago I talked about resonant vibration in the front end of a motorcycle. Well, when it's in the fairing, there's one of two things. One of the bolts is loose or missing, and a lot of times, especially on a 650, there's some bolts up in awkward places, especially if you take the whole nose section off. There are some bolts that are hard to get to, so maybe if somebody worked on a bike and they did a job for you to replace something, it's easier just to leave the bolt out. If all the bolts are in there and you still have a problem, what you really should try to do is take some, I would like the closed cell foam and some contact cement and find walk around the bike like this, and this is an easy way to do it, like it's a drum, and you'll hear vibration. You'll hear it. You can actually hear it. I could go out and do a demo in a garage if we wanted to do this on real time. And where that part is doing that, on the inside of the fairing, contact cement, put a piece of that rubber foam. Or if the worst happened, you could take the stuff that they sell for automotive soundproofing. Now, just thinking of something that's pretty neat. Joe Padula, when we did his Ducati, the 888, it had a rubber piece inside the fairing that needed to be replaced. And we got some, I think he got it, and he did it already. But one of the parts of that job, I didn't do it, so I don't know if he actually finished it, because he's already ridden the bike, of course. With that rubber had to go back on there for whatever reason. Now, I don't know whether Ducati did it to kill the sound of the engine, because Ducati engines tend to be a little louder than most. There's a lot of noise, a lot of mechanical noise from the clutch and stuff. But I don't know. But I know that's an interesting thing. But I do know when I take my R1 apart, or some of the sport bikes, they have that rubber parts in there and insulating parts here and there. And there might be a reason. Maybe that's where they have resonant vibration issues when they're designing it at the factory. Anyway, William, I hope that helps. Now, these are fun. I love answering questions that I can answer very quickly and right to the point. Not the same Scott that we hear from on almost a daily basis, but another Scott. I got a little confused with this. I thought he bought another bike. He's rebuilding an RZ, and he went on and on with me. He rides his RZ like I ride my RD, like it's a time machine. I've heard this from so many people. You go back in time, you're 18 years old, and it's hard to explain this to somebody 40 years old. They're not looking to go back in time. You know, they want to go forward. Well, for me, there's no forward anymore. It's all back. So anyway, and there's a fellow named Ricky J. Now, Ricky, this is the kind of email I love to get. He's got his first bike, and he's watching videos. Well, nobody's born knowing anything. You got to learn stuff. You got to find sources of information. YouTube happens to be a good one. And he watched a tire changing video. He thinks he'll be able to change his own tires. I sure think you can. Be careful not to scratch your rims if possible. If you use that method I show with the tape, you won't scratch the rim either. And he wants to do all his own maintenance. Well, this is great. When you want to do an oil change, if you go to YouTube and you have an R6 and an R1, a Honda, a VFR, there's videos how to do every single step of it. It's wonderful that all that stuff is out there. Now, I had a great email, Gorgon. He agrees. Now, I know he agrees about keeping the airbox and the exhaust stock if you want a bike to run right. Now, if you're going racing and you're going to make a lot of money racing around a racetrack, okay, well, this doesn't apply. You want hot rod parts. But along with hot rod parts you got to know how to tune things and dial things in. And it's not a one-shot thing that you can put in a coffee cup. You got to go back and forth until you get it exactly right. So when you're lost in space and you can't get the bike to run right, start with all the stock parts. Stock jetting, stock exhaust, mainly the stock airbox. Everybody that puts pods on, yeah, some people get them to run great, but for everybody that does, there's 6 people that are disgusted. So, and I'm glad you agree, but the point of this video is, and this is great, this is not a video, so you can contact me and say I agree or disagree. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to agree. It's okay to share. You have useful information, let me have it. And at the end of it, you still have it. So it's like being able to give somebody a salami sandwich, and you still got the salami. Now, I do all my own tire changing, and I like to do all my own maintenance if possible. I've always had the help of people like Luciano and many other people that have offered to help on some projects that really get labor intensive. And when we do an engine change, like in Glenn's Ducati, it's nice to have the third guy. But the reality is, these things like changing tires, there's several ways, and this is my whole point. There's a lot of ways. You can go out on YouTube, and I bet there's 50 different ways with zip ties and hammers and sledges and tire machines and this and that. Of course, you can always go to a dealer and just open up your wallet. But there's a satisfaction comes when you can do the work yourself in your own garage. There's no waiting. There's no ride to the dealer. There's no pick it up tomorrow. We're busy today. There's none of that.
And for me, I just try to be like an independent contractor. I just want to do all my own work, and by sharing it, maybe some people like the person that just wrote in, he'll find out he can do a lot of this stuff yourself too.
Okay, another really good information sharing. A fellow named Emmanuel. Emmanuel, thank you very much for sharing. He does bike painting, and his method of painting plastic parts, excellent. I know this works because I've already tried this, and it does work well. You degrease and prep the part as normal, and you sand it with Scotch-Brite, gray Scotch-Brite pad, which probably is about 1,000 grit sandpaper, I'm guessing. I've seen custom car shows when they paint over old cured paint. They do 1,000 grit. They don't do any rougher. Now, I don't know about it. See, I don't do cars, so I only have my own little sneaky way of getting around things here. Now, I wanted to show this. This is what he's suggesting. You have plastic parts, prep them, the gray Scotch pad, and there's probably other brands of this. This is Strip Clean. It's called Bulldog. It's adhesion promoter, and it makes the paint. It's what primer does. Primer makes paint stick. It's glue. That's what it's made for. Self-etching primer has a little acidic thing that goes in and attaches to the metal a little bit better. The primer sealer, which I use, seals it so the thinner in the paint doesn't go down through and melt the plastic. Now, if you're really old like I am, you know back in the good old days, 750 Hondas came out. When 750 Hondas came out, I'll bet I painted so many. I had bad experiences with maybe 1 out of 3 side covers. They would literally melt. Now, we use an acrylic lacquer and lacquer at the time, and lacquer thinners, if you use high penetrating thinner or slow drying thinner, you paint over them, they just turn to like broken glass. They melt and everything. And then one wouldn't. I never figured out why. I didn't need to know why, because I found a solution. And the solution was sealer primer. And then when you paint on it, don't paint wet, so that there's very little thinner going down in. And plastic parts can be tricky to paint, but all modern bikes have plastic parts. They're 3/4 of them. Cars too, they're plastic. But anyway, the whole point, and with the other things that we're discussing today, it's the same old thing no matter what the answer is always more than one way to skin a cat. And in my case, now, I have to confess, I watch a lot of YouTube. And I watch people doing technical things that I will never do. I watched a guy cutting granite blocks in Greece or Sicily or something, and how he put the chisel in the wood thing, and I said, I'm never going to do that. But I'm amazed how people figure out how to do things, and then I think somewhere down the road, maybe I'll have a similar, I want to cut a rock in half or something. Its knowledge is always valuable. It's like money, even if you're not going to spend it today. Just knowing that stuff, it has some intrinsic value. Now, I wanted to go, and I wanted to be careful about keeping these in some kind of logical order. Again, we get a lot of comments, and this was one. I just did the test again this week. I was doing some stuff with Steve. CKD Mobile. He wanted to know if you should sand the color paint before you put the clear on. Now, the answer is yes and no. If you have white or black or red, the odds are good if you sand it with really fine paper. When you put the clear on, you will not see the scratches. If you have silver or gold or that color Steve has, and I go near that with sandpaper before I put the clear on, that you'll put all the clear on, you take it out in the sun, and you'll see the sanding scratches. So the answer is yes and no. And there was another question, I don't remember, I may just repeat this while we're talking about it. Does it matter if you put the clear on right away or the next day or a week later? I have done it every way. And I've never had it that I thought there was an issue with it. I had to figure out how to do it some way different. I've done it when I'm trying to do a part and have it done in one day, which I never used to do until maybe 2 years ago. I'd always prime it, let it dry overnight, because I was used to dealing with acrylic lacquer and lacquer where everything has to outgas and butyrate dope. Modern paints are so easy to use. Modern paints, they paint themselves. The only issue you have if you don't have a spray booth, you're going to have dust in the final paint. Buff it out. And the buffing is, if you have a spray booth, you even should buff it out. So anyway, now this is a question that I'm sad I can't answer, and I don't even try to answer these kind of questions. It's from William. William, he wants to know, what would be a better choice bike? The one I have, the 650R, or an MT-07? Now, the reason I don't compare bikes is simple. It's a personal choice thing. What works for Luciano, or works for Jose, or works for some other person, not going to work for me. I have my own personal things that I like in a motorcycle, and they're not exactly in alignment with other people, and they change. What I liked in a motorcycle when I was 18 years old, I wouldn't ride that bike if it was free. Yeah, the bikes with no mirrors and then lane splitting and everything. Well, as you get older, you change. And what happens is when you have you're trying to compare this bike to that bike, this bike to that bike, it's kind of an invalid test because you're only comparing it for what works for you. And the other guy, he wants a more comfortable bike. Another guy wants a faster bike. Another guy wants a bike with this feature or that feature, or a windshield or no windshield. So I never compare. But I can guarantee you one thing. They're both excellent motorcycles.
Just to follow up on why I don't compare motorcycles, if I had 10 different people come over and say, hey guys, take a ride on any one of my bikes and pick the one you like the best and you can have it, it's free. Well, some people would definitely take the R1. I know there's people that would be their cup of tea. I know there's people that like older bikes like the FZR. That'd be gone. Some people, and I'm probably one of them, would pick the MT-09 because of all safety features. I'm really conscious of ABS and the good traction control it has. And some people I know would jump right on that GS and say, here's my baby, 40 years old, 73,000 miles, and probably got another 73 in the tank. Everybody likes something different. That's one of the beauties of motorcycling, and that's why comparing isn't really fair.
This is a good question from Jim. This is probably something that a lot of people would normally have asked if they were doing some kind of a little repair. So Jim's question is, I guess he watched me repair the fender on Turbo Steve's bike, and I was using carbon fiber. Now, and his question is it okay to use fiberglass? Eglass, what you consider fiberglass, white, Kevlar is yellow, carbon fiber is black. So yes, that's perfectly okay. And the carbon fiber is a way overkill thing, but it's still better than underkill or no kill at all. Just leave the crack. If I left the crack in that fender, somewhere down the road, it may crack, and then we got to paint the whole thing over. So and Steve's not in a rush to ride the bike, so we do that repair. Now, at some future time, and I thought, no, we're going to have more of these question and answers. It looks like it's very popular. To be honest, I'm going to try to describe the difference between Eglass, which most people know is what boats are made out of and stuff, and Kevlar, you think bulletproof vest, and carbon fiber, you think aircraft parts. Well, it started out that way, but it's evolved to where there are matrices of Kevlar and carbon and Eglass and carbon and all kind of things that look really cool. The finishes, the surfaces and everything. But originally carbon fiber was made for structure, not for appearance. It just turns out that's the way it played out. Now, next question. Matthew, is MT-09 parts the surface bubbled? It had no clear. I'd have to see a picture of it. I'd have to see what happened there. And I've tried to explain to people, if you want to send me a picture of your project or what's going on that I can answer it, I can download it. It's got to be in an attachment to an email to fzrguy72618 Now, I'll try to get that posted up on a screen somewhere here. The reason is I can usually look at something. Remember, I've been doing this for a long time, and I have the distinct advantage over people that are factory trained. I'm self-taught, so that means I made all the mistakes myself. I didn't have somebody say, "Oh, don't put your finger there and close the car door." I slammed my hand on the car door, and I lost a lot of hours of work for making screwy mistakes. that's the whole reason it's enjoyable for me to pass on this information. Anyway, if you can send me a picture, we'll expound on that on the next video. And it looks like we get enough of these questions and answers. These videos get long, but I don't care. It's good information, it's quality stuff, and it's not, I'm not going to try to say I'm the only one in the world knows how to paint a motorcycle, because anybody knows that's a lie. Okay, there's a fella from, his name is Call from Ohio. So Call from Ohio, I love this. We had a long talk. We had a talk on a telephone, in fact. And he wanted to know, he wanted me to talk him through the steps of painting a whole motorcycle black and gold like my Ninja. And I thought, well, we spent quite a bit of time on the phone. No point going back over it here, because we have hundreds of videos of painting that black and gold motorcycle, every step of it. Fast forward through the commercials if you have to. But anyway, I'm hoping I'm going to get some pictures, because I did spend quite a bit of time, and I really would like to see that some of these people, what the result is, and if they want to try to make it better, we could work on it. Now, there's a person named S.T. Hildes sent me a thing for a German applicator, hard and soft foam for polish and paint. I don't have one. I don't have a link, a website link that I can forward to people, but I know such things exist. I've seen them. I've seen them when I watch the show. I can't think of the guy. He details cars. Anyway, I can't think of it right now. The applicator has a hard side and a soft side, and you can wax with it. And I don't use it because it's probably made for cars, and it probably would be good on a gas tank. But most of the stuff I'm painting is all edges, and on a wheel. My God, you give me an octopus to buff out a wheel. But anyway, I appreciate, again, there's way more than one way to solve any problem. Anybody that's a cook, Joe Roselli is a great cook. Anybody that cooks knows you can cook a steak. This guy can cook a steak, he can cook a steak. But the winning program is when they all share their information, share their recipes, and you can try and find the one you like the best. That's the winning combination. Now, I'll have to abbreviate this. AEX Extra 65, AEX RT 65. That might be an acronym for something. He was going on, he agrees with the engine polishing. He watched the engine polishing video, and I guess he's doing his own engine. He knows. He says it takes a lot of patience and effort. Yes, building the pyramids took a lot of effort. Just ask the slaves of Egypt. It's a lot of work doing this stuff. Anyway, I wanted to come to the end of this day and thank all the people that sent in questions. We try not to leave anybody out, but the one question a lot of people ask me, and this is probably a good enough time as any to share this, that there's a story a lot of people about my life people don't know now. I was, as a young man, probably 12, 13 years old, before I even drove a car. I got very interested in model aviation. Went to the national championships. At the national championships, I see, well, my model airplane looked like sandpaper, and here's these beautiful, they look like glass. And I asked one of the people, I will never forget this, and I will never mention his name. I said, hey, mister, how do you get that paint to shine like that? And he blew me off. He said, that's secret stuff. We don't share that. Okay, I accept that. But in the course of the next year, and anybody that's a modeler knows this name, Harold Price, the late Harold Price, I linked up with Harold Price, and Harold knew how to do it. He knew how to buff paint out. He says, just come over to my house, bring your plane, and I'll show you how to. Well, he taught me how to paint, number one. He showed me how to use a spray gun. He showed me how to drain a compressor and make sure you drain your compressor. And what I'm saying is he was so willing to share the information. He set an example for me that I felt compelled to share with other people in the world of modeling. And in the world of modeling, my videos are still out there on YouTube. There's thousands of them too. The articles I've written for the magazines and stuff. But it basically all boiled down to one skill. I wanted to share that information because as a young guy, I really appreciated that information. And had Harold not helped me, I might have figured it out 20 years later, or maybe I'd just give up. Whatever. But when somebody shares the information, the thing to always remember about it, if you share it with somebody, if something I've said today you can put to use in your life, I still have it. It's a wonderful thing to be able to do that. And many of the people I've known for my whole life that are modelers and people like Luciano, motorcycle mechanics and racers and like Joe Padula, some people are compelled to keep trade secrets. I understand that when there's money involved. But in the world that we live in, of trying to ride motorcycles safely and help each other learn the skills involved for track days and stuff, there's really not much reason for keeping a secret. In fact, I like to go the other way. I like to help everybody if I possibly can. So that's my goal. It's a simple thing, and I don't know how to explain it any simpler than that. That's the reason I do what I do, and I do enjoy it, and I do enjoy making the videos. I do enjoy going on the rides. I do enjoy editing it, and I do enjoy hearing from the people in my comments section.
And there's one final point that I think some people, they don't really see it the way I do. We may disagree on this, but this is something I truly believe. Motorcycling is a wonderful thing. In my case of my life, it keeps me active. It keeps me busy. It keeps me mentally active. It challenges me every day to find new ways to do things and new videos to shoot. But the biggest thing, the compelling part of it, is the friendships you make, and Karen and I both agree. The friendships you make through motorcycling, and you go out on some of these rides, especially if the weather's bad, if it rains, it's terrible out, and you go out and you share the stories, you share the joy of doing your ride, doing your track day, doing your friendship thing, going up to the meetups. Those friendships are very special, and I don't know that everybody in the world has those kind of friendships. I don't know that, because I know some people that don't seem to have that many friends, and I don't know why. It's not like they're unfriendly. You just don't have a source for finding interesting people that are interacting and share a passion with you. And when you share a passion with somebody and you share a common interest, it's very, very easy to develop a lifelong friendship. That's exactly the way it is. Modeling does that for sure, and motorcycling does it, I think, even more. And special thanks to John Pathia, who did the logo work for our t-shirts. And by the way, if you'd like an MT09 commemorative t-shirt for that project, they're available from TeePublic, and the link is in the description of the video. So for anybody who noticed the little picture in my editing studio and doesn't know what this is my birthday was right around the time I got the MT09, and my grandson Miles, they made this picture, and he made sure he made the wheels blue and the gas tank blue, and that is supposed to be me standing by the MT09. I'm not sure he got the teeth right, to be honest, but it's a beautiful thing. And of course, that MT09, just every day it gets better and better. It's more and more fun for me to ride. As a lot of people, I've tried to explain to them, it suits my riding needs. Doesn't suit everybody's. There's probably people that wouldn't even want it in their collection. For me, it suits my needs perfectly at this point in my life. And I do love all the safety features. So, until we meet again, send your questions in. I'll try to answer them on the comments section. If you still want a t-shirt, that's in the description section, the hot link. And if you just want to have some entertaining stories or some interesting thing, send me a story and I'll share it with all the people who are my subscribers and friends, and they're worldwide. And we really do have friends all over the world. Thanks for watching.